All right, hybrid class, this is your very last video of the year. And the first thing I want to remind you of is please save the date, May 16th. That's a Thursday night at 6 o'clock. We're inviting you and your parents for your final presentation. On the quiz on Tuesday, you'll have to circle one of these, either something we've studied before that you're going to present, something that we have not presented yet that you'd like to do, or another idea that's not even on this list at all. So best of luck. We'll go over probably on Thursday some of the requirements or some of the things I'm looking for that, 5 to 7 minute presentation that you're going to make to both parents and classmates. And we'll make sure that there are some refreshments there as well for the evening. I'm looking forward to it. So we're looking at Jewish responsibility right now and what Jewish law has to say about direct responsibility. We looked at the cow of Elazar ben Azariah, and just to make this very relevant, we looked specifically at the wicked child of the Passover Seder, and we're looking a little bit at the parent-child interchange that happens at that Seder, that there is this moment of the Seder where you say there are four different types of people of children at the Seder. One is wise, one is wicked, one is simple, one doesn't know how to ask. And the interaction of the wicked child is, what is this all to you? This doesn't mean anything to me. Why is this even important? I wish I wasn't here. I wish I was doing something else. And the parent says, like, you lousy kid, if you're removing yourself from the community, why are you all doing all these questions? If you were in Egypt and if God had a chance to save you, he wouldn't have saved you because God wouldn't have saved you because of your absolute wickedness. And I think as we get a kind of understanding more about responsibility, we get the sense of, maybe this father's answer isn't completely isn't completely doesn't align to kind of what we think it should be in Jewish law. So we learned, for instance, in the case of Elazar ben Azariah's cow, right, that it wasn't actually his cow, it was his neighbor's cow, but that cow was doing something that was wrong. The neighbor was doing something wrong, and he had in his power to help change that child. So all of a sudden, to change the person's kind of use of the cow, and all of a sudden, because of that, we see that the cow is called Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah's cow. And so, in that sense, the Talmud knowing that, or the writers of the Haggadah knowing that, and we have a wicked child at the Seder, what should actually the parent be saying? Not saying, you're so bad, get out of here, you don't deserve to be here at this Seder. What's the responsibility that the parent actually has to that child, right? And the child's transgressions in some way. So I think that's what I wanted you to kind of think about when we looked at that story of Elazar ben Azariah. We're going to see two other ideas come up today, and kind of in your summary, and also what I'd like to see on the final quiz on this quiz is kind of how each of these ideas kind of affect the way that parent should be or should not be reacting to the wicked child at the Passover Haggadah. So here we go. But kind of talk today, kind of as we go through, you'll kind of learn kind of some Jewish ideas about responsibilities. So here we go. And today we're really going to be talking a little bit about direct responsibility, but not completely. But okay, and so the idea of Jewish indirect responsibility, at least, and a little bit of Jewish responsibility comes from a statement in Devarim, in the fifth book of the Torah, this is kind of Moses' speech to the Israelite people right on the banks of the Jordan River, right before they enter into the land. And here's what he's telling him about when you enter the land. So here we go. If in the land that God assigns you, you find an unknown person dead lying in the field in the open, Then the judges and elders of the city should go out and measure the distance between the body and the various surrounding towns. The elders of the nearest town to that body will then take a cow that has never done any work at all before and bring it to a valley that has never been cultivated. And so a cow that has never done cultivating, that's called an egel arufa, an egel, and the elders will break the neck of that cow and will wash their hands of that cow. While doing so, they shall say the following: Our hands did not shed this blood, and our eyes did not see this done. Do not let the guilt for this blood remain among the innocent. So this is a ritual done when you have a body found and you don't know that um, who was the killer, and in some way a dead person without the known murderer, that creates a problem. Who is going to take responsibility? Who is going to take accountability? And they have this ritual where they go to that dead body and they measure. They say, which town is closest? And in a way, we're saying something right there. The town that is closest to this dead body bears some type of responsibility, at least the responsibility to do this ritual. And what is this ritual trying to do? This ritual is trying to say, to get rid of our responsibility. So right there, we learn something about proximity to a bad deed equals some way that you have some sort of responsibility. At least you have enough of a connection to a bad act if it happens in your vicinity, that you have to in some way publicly do something to show that you're not responsible. Okay, so I think that's one important thing as we're moving on. So the idea of this verse, or this statement right here, or this whole idea of the egel that has never worked being brought out to a field, and their neck broken, and kind of this whole ritual being done to in some way account for a murder that happened in your proximity. This all is the subject of a bunch of different mishnayot is plural of mishnahs, that occur in Sota. So here we are, right? Remember, right, and we're going to learn, right? We'll hear again during Echad Miodea of Passover, Shisha Miodea, Shisha Aniodea, Shisha Sidrei Mishnah. There are six. Who knows number six? Oh, six. I can tell you. There are six orders, seders of the Mishnah, or books of the Mishnah, and here we are. Here's Seder Nashim. So the third book of the Mishnah, of the third Seder of the Mishnah, is Nashim, and in there is Masechet Sota. Sota is the water that a woman who is suspected by her husband of committing adultery drinks, with a curse dissolved in it. And if everything's fine after she drinks it, that kind of shows that she's not an adulterer. So that's called sota in that ritual. So that's what this book, this Masechet, is all about. But then we get to chapter 9, which actually talks um, about things you're supposed to say in Hebrew. And here we're going to get a set of Mishnayot that seem very much like the Talmud, right? Because it's not just going to be a law and then questioned by the Talmud. They're going to do a lot of the questioning in the Mishnah itself. So here are some of the questions that the Mishnah is going to ask about. So we have this idea of doing this ritual. Then the Mishnah is going to ask the following: Would you do this ritual if the dead body was found hidden in a pile of stones? Would you do this ritual if a dead body was found hanging from a tree? Would you do this ritual if a dead body was found floating in the water? What if the body is found in a place that all know to be dangerous? What if the body is found exactly between two cities, where when the measurement is done, what part of the body is the measurement done from, like to figure out which city is near? If the head is separated from the body, do you bring the body to the head and then measure from there? Or do you bring the head to the body and then measure from there? And by the way, the answer to this question kind of helps us understand also kind of what is the most important part of the of a person Jewishly. Is it the head or is it the body? Right. Right. Or okay. And what is the part of the body you measure from? Do you measure from the head? Do you measure from the navel? And right, or the belly button. So some great questions that come from kind of a really close look at these verses itself. Let's see, by the way, if you can figure it out from look closely at the words below and see if you can figure out if you need to do this ritual if the dead body was found hidden in a pile of stones or hanging from a tree or floating in the water. So did you see if you can figure that out from the first bit of the first couple lines of this statement? And what the rabbis are going to tell us actually is looking at the words in the land and a field lying in a field in the open is going to help us know if we're supposed to do it. So we're supposed to do these. We're supposed to do this ritual if it's in the land, or if it's or the dead person is lying in a field, or the dead person is lying in the field in the open. Okay, so and is that going to give us, that should give us the answer of if we do the ritual, if it's found hidden in stones, found hanging from a tree, found floating in the water. And so here is the first part of that Mishnah. And so basically they're looking closely at the Torah and saying from a closer look at the Torah, what it does say, what it doesn't say, can help us understand when we're supposed to do this ritual and when we are kind of exempt or patur from doing this ritual. If a corpse was found hidden in a pile of stones or hanging on a tree or floating on the surface of the water, then the judges would not need to break the neck of the egel. That you don't need to do it. You don't need to do this ritual. You're kind of you don't need to kind of you don't bear responsibility because the Torah specifically says if one found was slain in the land, meaning in the land and not concealed in a pile of stones, lying on the ground, um, lying on the ground and not hanging on the tree, in a field and not floating in the surface of the water. So basically, the mission is saying, oh, because it says that it's lying on the ground in the open. If it was in some way hidden, some way hanging, in some way floating on the water, then all of a sudden that would be a case where you would not need to do this ritual. It's kind of exempt from that because of the Torah is very specific about how you need to find and where you need to find and what you need to do. Okay. And then we're going to go on, and it says, if a corpse was found close to the border of the country or close to a city in which the majority of inhabitants are idol worships, or close to a city that is without a rabbinical court of 23 judges, then the judges would not break the heifer's neck. And that's really our next piece that I want I want to look at, and I want to kind of but before we do that, I want to ask the question this: and the inhabitants of Jerusalem do. Wait a second. Let's first kind of finish the whole Mishnah. If the slain person is found precisely between two cities, the inhabitants of the two of them bring two heifers. Meaning, if it's like right in between, and you do the measurements and it's equidistance, both of them are in some way responsible. And this is the statement of Rabbi Eliezer. And the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not bring a heifer whose neck is broken, even if of Jerusalem is the closest city. And so, first of all, why is that the case? And again, we look at, and this is what Dr. Josh Culp, who I brought up a couple of times, says, because the beginning says, if in the land that God assigns you. And he says, the above mentioned verse says, if a corpse was found slain on the land which God has given to you to inherit. Jerusalem was not given as an inheritance to any specific tribe, rather it belonged to all of Israel. Therefore, it is excluded from the laws of this verse. Okay, but really what I want to look at is this part of the verse. And I want to ask you the question, what is happening here? Basically, all of a sudden we see that these towns are basically, that once they're told they don't have to break a neck of this cow, they're saying these towns are not responsible. In this case, why are they not responsible? Because the corpse is found close to the border of the country, or close to a city where the majority of inhabitants are idol worship, or close to a city in which there is no rabbinical court of 23 judges. So what is this actually trying to tell us about responsibility And if they're not saying that the responsibility is for any of these closest towns, who are they calling then responsible in this case, and why? Okay, so think about that for a second, and then when you've thought about it, let's hear what Dr. Culp has to say. If a corpse is found near the border of a land of Israel, i.e., near enemy territory, near a city where the majority of inhabitants are idol worshippers, also considered to be enemies, a heifer was not brought. The Talmud explains, and it's unclear actually if the Talmud is really explaining this, or there's a version of the Talmud that explains this. The Talmud explains that these places are considered dangerous, and therefore, by going near them, the victim was not acting in a safe manner. Hence, if he is slain, assumed by enemies, there's no communal guilt incurred by the Jewish cities closest to the corpse. So that's really interesting in our conversation about direct responsibility, because what is this saying? That actually there are times when actually we learned in Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah's case of you saw someone do something wrong and you didn't say something back, and that's your problem. But here we see there's something else about responsibility. We see this person deliberately going to an area that is dangerous. So basically, there is personal responsibility that you, in a sense, have. So the question is, so possibly when the evil child says something, and the child and the man is and the parent is talking back, and the parent says, says like God did things for me, but would never ever have done things for you, and you've removed yourself from the community. What could the parent, or might the parent be saying, like, why are you declared evil, or you're evil because, and who's responsible for this evil, right? So that's another kind of interaction that we could have, specifically based upon this idea of, hey, you put yourself in danger, you put yourself in a bad situation, and specifically by removing yourself from a community, you're putting yourself in a place where you can become kind of worse than you should be. And if you were connected with us, if you said, I'm part of this people, then this would have never happened. So in a sense, maybe actually what is actually said in the Haggadah is very similar to what this piece is saying, that the parent is basically pushing back on the kid and saying, it's not my fault that you've ended up the way you are. It's not my fault that you're disconnected from Jewish ritual. It's not my fault that you see nothing involved in this. You've said very clearly, this is a ritual to you and not to me. You're not part of us. And by doing that, you put yourself in grave danger and being influenced in ways that and if you had stayed connected, you would realize how important this is, not just to me, the parent, but to you, the kid. All right. So and now we're going to move on to one other piece of this ritual, and that has to do with a question that the Mishnah, in a very Talmudic-like way, is going to ask about this part of the ritual. Can you figure out read what's highlighted, and can you figure out kind of what the problem is that the Mishnah is going to come up with? Or what about if I kind of limit it to specifically these words right here? Have you figured out kind of what's a little strange about what's going on? So the rabbis are going to say, listen to this ritual. This ritual is that the elders are going out into the field. They're performing this of the closest city to this dead body. The elders are going out. They're performing this ritual. They're breaking the neck of a egel of an egel that has never done any work, and they're saying, our hands did not shed this blood. And so the Mishnah is going to ask the following question. What? They're going to say, this is so weird. Why would the elders of this city, right, the wise ones who are part of the court system, who are like scrupulous in their own practice, why would they say our hands did not shed blood? Of course our hands did not shed blood. Of course their hands didn't shed blood. Why would actually we ever think that the elders, that the judges of the court would be the ones that would do evil. What could they have possibly done that was evil? And that's what the rabbis try, that's what the Mishnah asks and tries to answer. And it says the following, right in the Mishnah: Ziknei ota ir rochatzinet yedehem b'mayim b'makom arifa shel egla. The elders of the city wash their hands with water in the place where they kill that cow, and they say, Yadenu lo shafchu et adam hazeh ve'einenu lo ra'u. Our hands did not shed the blood of this man, and our eyes did not see. And the Mishnah asks, V'chi al datenu alta sheziknei beit din shofchin damei hen? Would it have really risen in your mind that the elders of the court would be the shedders of blood? Rather, Ella, right? We've had this word before. This is what the elders are saying when they say these words. So what do you think they're saying? Give it a try first from Mishnah 6. This is what they're saying. They're saying, right. Okay. It's as if the Mishnah is saying, okay, I agree with you. It makes no sense that the Torah would need these words at all. Why are they in the Torah? Then they must be in the Torah to teach us something. But what? And but what is that what? So Ella, they're here to teach us the following. Shelo ba liadenu uftar nuhu below mazon, velo reinuhu v'hinachnuhu below levaya. Right? Rather, this is what the elders are saying with these words. This person who we're seeing dead right here did not come to us and we dismissed him without food. We did not see him and let him continue on his way without an escort. So when the rabbis are saying we didn't shed the blood of this person, they're not saying we didn't kill this person. They're saying we didn't give him food that he needed to survive. And because we didn't give him that food, what happened next? Or we didn't see him and basically say we see him and didn't provide him an escort through some dangerous land, meaning that. And so what is this trying to say? It means that if we did see him and didn't give him food, or if we did see him and didn't provide him with a guide or an escort through some dangerous areas, then actually we would have been responsible. So basically, by giving someone food, and by not giving someone food, or by not helping them when we see them kind of in a precarious situation, we in some way bear guilt, not direct responsibility for what happened, but in a sense, our actions or our lack of actions cause a certain thing to happen. And so the rabbis, when they say we did not shed blood, where they're basically saying, sure, we're not the murderers, but we may have set up a situation that caused this murder to happen. And we just want to be clear that we didn't do that. Because if we did that, then we, in fact, the murder would have been on us because we set up that situation. This is very different, by the way, of the cow of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. He saw something potentially bad happening, and he doesn't say, hey, that's wrong, don't do it, right? That would be a different case if, if the person came to the city. But here they're saying someone came to the city, we see them, and we didn't do what they needed. We didn't give them what they needed, so and if they had those things, they wouldn't have gone out to they wouldn't have put themselves in a place of danger, in a place, and we wouldn't have kind of made their position more dangerous or more, we wouldn't have put them in a place where they needed to rob or they needed to steal or they needed to get food and be desperate in some kind of way, right? So again, this has some very clear implications about indirect responsibility. And again, this whole case of the egel and the breaking the neck of the egel is called the egla arufa, or egel arufa probably is correct. And sometimes it's referred to in that kind of way, that it kind of teaches us a little bit about indirect responsibility. Um, so the question would be now, what would be if the child is saying, is considered the wicked child here? How is our parent responds by saying, "You are who you are. You've done bad for yourself. And God would, But now maybe, since we know this new case, how might the parent actually respond, right? And I just want to bring up one other really interesting incident that I found that was brought to me through kind of a teaching and learning from the Hartman Institute. It's always really interesting to me when the Israeli court systems use Jewish law to determine certain things. And so I want to bring you back in time to 1976, when Israel is involved in some kind of getting the PLO out of Israel, pushing them into Lebanon. And there's something that happened during this time period called the Sabra and Shatila massacre, and I'll show you how it's related in a moment. So let me just go through the timeline really quickly. There's a civil war in Lebanon between Christian ruling parties and Muslim population who joined the Muslim population joined forces with the Palestinian population that lived there after fleeing Israel. Terrorist organization by PLO, led by Yasser Arafat, hopes to bring the war about. As early as 1976, Israel has been assisting the Lebanese Christian militias in their battles with the PLO, because the PLO, an enemy of my enemy is my friend. But Israel's main partner was to be the Christian Falange Party, whose paramilitary leader was a guy named Bashir Gemayel, and he was a rising figure. Israeli involvement in the Lebanese civil war between the Lebanese Christian and Lebanese Palestinians began in June 1982, when Israel invaded Lebanon. The goal of Israel is to rout out the PLO, which had set up a state within a state, and to transform Lebanon into a Christian-ruled ally. So this is kind of Israel trying to play at the games of politics in some way. So the United States agrees to deploy Marines to Lebanon as part of a multinational force to supervise PLO's departure. America negotiates a ceasefire that includes written guarantees to protect Palestinian civilians remaining in camps from vengeful Lebanese Christians, and the Marines depart Beirut on September 10th. Israel hoped that Lebanon's newly elected president, Bashir Gemayel of Falange, would support an Israel-Christian alliance. But on September 14th, Bashir is assassinated. Israel reacted quickly, occupying West Beirut to keep the peace, because the Lebanese Christians were angry and wanted to take revenge against the killing of Bashir. By September 16th, the IDF was fully in control of West Beirut, including 2 Palestinian refugee camps known as Sabra and Shatila. The big question was, were there PLO terrorists in this refugee camp? And most believe that 200 soldiers are in there. On the eve of September 16th, Falange fighters enter the Palestinian camps. Israel allows them in so they can get rid of the PLO terrorists in the camp. But here's the big question. Is this really true? Were there terrorists? Did Israel know Lebanese Christians, what the Lebanese Christians would do? That's the main part of the story, where the Falange fighters are ordered out anywhere. When the Falange fighters are ordered to leave, there's anywhere from 460 to 800 people dead, and most of them are not soldiers. So there's a massacre that occurs in Sabra and Shatila. And the question is, what blame does Israel have for allowing this to happen? There is a Khan commission, right? So basically, here is the big debate in Israel. Israeli army allows phalanges into the Sabra and Shatila refugee camp to seek revenge. They may have even guarded the access points and let off flares to aid the night's attack. The Israelis did none of the killing, but it was under their watch. Is Israel responsible? And the Khan Commission, this is what. So there was a big. Khan was the head of the Supreme Court at the time, and this is what the Khan Commission had to say about indirect responsibility in the case of Sabra and Shatila. And the reason I bring it up is because they use exactly our case to go ahead and to tell us what the answer should be. So I'd like you to kind of read this, and I'll ask you on the quiz about what the answer from the Khan Commission is. Do they hold the leaders? And the leader of the military at that time happens to be Ariel Sharon, a future prime minister of Israel. And is he guilty in this case of Sabra and Shatila? And how is our Talmud case? And they don't use the Mishnah, they use the Talmud here, because but the Talmud really says exactly what the Mishnah says. There's not so much different in it. Okay. Lastly, so I'll ask you that on the quiz. Lastly, what I'd like you to do is to summarize kind of what we know at this point about Jewish responsibility, and how knowing those different things might affect what the parent should say to the wicked child when the wicked child says, "This means nothing to me. I don't belong to you as a people. I don't want this ritual in my life." And how knowing kind of these three different ideas about Jewish responsibility change the way maybe our parent of the wicked child should be responding to that wicked child. So hopefully you got you got that from this lesson, because that's what I'll be asking on the quiz as well. Thanks, everyone.